So I hope I'm audible to everyone now, and let's start today's session. So just a quick review again that we have already covered these topics: data types, operators, variables, advanced data types like list, dictionaries, conditionals. And last session we saw operations on if else. We saw how loops work in Python, and we also saw how functions are defined in Python, what parameters are, and what a return type is. Okay, so I was on this particular file that day, and I showed you using different examples that how to use default arguments or parameters, that you can use a function within a function, right? So we did all of these stuff, and so today we want to practice on whatever we have learned till now, right? Using all of these stuff. Okay. Uh, Apart from that, what we are left with is file handling, right? File handling, exception handling, and some object-oriented programming concepts, which will help us to understand how everything works, right? If we are doing something, why we are doing it, or how that is working. Okay. So that would be just giving us some insight into the language. So that will be helpful to us in understanding and coding later. Okay. So let's see. Before that, I think we should discuss what file handling is, and how to handle files basically. File handling simply means that you want to handle any kind of file, PDF, Excel, text file, or CSV file, right? Whenever image file or video file, whenever you're working with a file, so that is called file handling, and how we do it using Python, that we will see here. Okay. So basically, this line of code, file equal to open file.txt, comma rt. Okay. Let's check what it means. So basically, what it says that open, right? Open something a first parameter. So basically, open is let's understand it as a function. Okay, for now it is a generator function, but let's understand it as a function. File.text. So this is the first argument, and this is second argument. Okay, so it says that open this file named file.txt and open in this mode. Mode is rt, right? So what does these value means that I have written here? We will discuss it, and then the next line says that print f.read, right? uh, Not f, it should be file.read. Let me just change it quickly. File.read. So just a okay. So this is fine now. So it should be file.read. So what we're doing is there is a method in this basically object that is here, file. So file is basically variable which holds this particular thing, and that has a function called read. So basically when you do file.read, you can read whatever is there in this file. Let's try it once. So let's say I have this text document called CMD commands. Okay, this we had created earlier. So let's try to read this file. Let's open the interpreter and do file equal to open, right? And say command CMD commands, CMD commands.txt, and say rt. Okay. Now if I say file.read, what it does, it reads the file and prints out whatever is written there, right? Apart from these, some of these characters which are slash and which we have already seen, right? If I open this file, I can see that there is a new line character here, right? And there is a new line character here. So there is a new line character here, new line character here. All of here we have a new line characters, right? So here the new line characters have also been printed. Okay. So but apart from that, all the contents of this file has been printed. If I do it a proper print, let's see what happens. I thought there was someone. Okay, anyway. So nothing happens. No. So all I wanted to tell you was that if you say, let's say 5 lines here, okay, and basically it will try to read a few lines. What is happening here? Let's just assign it again. Okay. Now file is text wrapper and file dot read file. It reads the first 5 characters of this file, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So if you wanted to read more characters, you could read specific number of characters. Why it will be useful, you can decide later depending on your case. But you can actually read the next 10 characters from here. Okay, the next 10 characters. So this is basically when I said that this is a generator, right? Whenever I do dot read, it gives me the next number of lines that I say. So this is kind of a generator function. Currently, we have not seen about how your generator functions work. So currently, you can only understand it as a function. Okay, a function which reads files, right? And if you specify an argument, how many characters you want to read, it will read that. Now, after this, if you specify 15 more characters, it will read 15 more characters starting from here. Okay, so this is how you can read a text file in Python. But obviously, you would not be reading text files. Probably you work with Excel or CSV files more, so you will read that. So let's try reading an Excel file, CSV file. We will try out Excel files later when we will be doing some exercises. But let's try how to do a CSV file for now. So to read a CSV file, we import a built-in module called CSV. Right? Modules we have not discussed much, but basically they extend functionalities of uh, you know what is already available globally, right? So I mean, like for example, in 5 is this int function is available globally, but more functionalities you want, so you import packages. So this is a built-in Python package, right, which handles CSV files. Okay, so once you've imported it, you can use all the functionalities available in this CSV module. Okay, right. So uh, let's see how to read a CSV file. I Hello. It's echoing. Can someone? Yeah. Thank you. So let us just create a CSV file or just take it from somewhere like this one. Okay, or uh, this one. Let's take this one and paste it here. And let's try to read this CSV file. Let's see how this looks like. So we have this CSV file that has some entries, basically this data. So we want to read it and get into Python to manipulate it, right? So there are a lot of rows and a lot of columns. Okay, so let's try reading it. In fact, for simplicity, let's remove so many columns and read only a few because we just want to check, right? and otherwise it would be so much data that you may get lost. So let's only read this much files. Okay. So I'll just save it, and now let's try to read it using Python. So what, as I've written here, that you can import CSV and then you can write this command to get your file data into a list in Python, right? So we had discussed this earlier that whenever you will read a file, generally you will get a list of this. So let's check how this works. So you will say with, uh, just let me copy it from you. Okay. So you will say with open, and you will name the file from here. You will say that open this .csv, right? And then close, and then new line equal to nothing, right? Close it as f, and then four spaces, right? Reader equal to csv dot reader, and we pass in the f. Okay, so we have taken this generator as f, and we have passed the generator function into the csv dot reader function. So we imported the csv package here, right? It is not imported, so we might get an error. But uh, anyway, then data equal to list of reader, and then we are passing the reader variable which holds the value of this particular thing, right? And then converts it into a list. Okay. And when I click this and run, I think we've already imported it. So this ran, right? Now if I check data, so I can see that all of that data that was there in the file has come into Python as lists of lists. So basically there is a big list, right? And then there are small lists inside this list having all of those values, right? So this is how you can read a file in Python. Now you can, do iterate over this data for I in data, or let's say for, LST in data. So there are lists. So I will say LST in data just to print the list. Okay. So now that will print each list in one line. Okay. So now you can see that this data is being printed on each of these lines separately. Okay. And this is a more clear representation, right? This shows that this is actually what was there in the file. So now you can create it and do anything you want, right? So this is how it works. So let's discuss what the other things are. Here I have said that when I'm opening a file, I have said RT. Okay. So I've defined a mode. So what RT means, basically, we have two characters here. One is R and one is T. So in the first one, we can use these first four, letters. What it means that you can open a file in read mode. Okay. So when you're opening a file in read mode, uh, obviously, matlab, it will not be able to write or append or create it. Okay. It will be only read, and it does not exist, right? It will throw an error. What T means is that it is a text file, right? So RT means that read a text file, right? Even CSV is a text file, or XLSX is a text file. So wherever you have text, right, you will say one of these four and one of these two. So mostly you will be using T. But let's say you're opening an image, then you will use D, okay, for images or videos, right? So, but definitely you will not be directly opening a video like this, because there are so many better libraries to open video or image if you want to analyze them. So you will not open it this way. But anyway, it's good to know that these are all the possible ways. So if you are using AT, what you're basically saying that you want to append, basically open a file for appending and creates the file if it does not exist. Open and do this and for a text file, right? When you're doing AT, when you're doing WT, you want to write the file in text mode, okay? And the second one is binary. Okay, so we have already discussed for images, so you can use both of these combinations to open any kind of file here. This is the mode in which you want to open. Okay, so this is all about file handling. More, it is obviously we've just seen how to open a file. We've not seen how to, write it back, and that we will see when we will be doing some examples, and moreover when we will doing practice exercises on web scripting. At that time, we might use a lot of file handling, and somewhere we will be also using files to manipulate data, and there we will see that how to manipulate data. Basically, this is the way you can open a file, and then uh, just csv dot write rows. There is one more function here, right? Csv dot write rows, and then uh, you can write it. But we will see it later. So right now, I think for now we are good to start with some of the examples in Python. Like we have not, we've obviously been seeing a lot of examples while doing this, and while we're doing it, we must be thinking that how we can implement in our own when we are doing day-to-day stuff, how we can do this, right? And we should be thinking like that, right? So, but now let us see a few examples, problems that will be helpful to us before we move further, right? We will have some idea that how we can use these kind of things, uh, when we have some problem in hand. So we will be just discussing a few simple problems. So we will start from a very simple problems, and then I think we will do some 15, 16 problems today. Hello, yeah. So and then we will see some other things. So let us start with them. Okay. So basically today we will discuss a problem, and then we will just write a solution. Okay, and we will try it out ourselves, right? So and for today's session, I would like us to use Google Collab, right? I had already discussed this earlier, and I would like, so basically where we might be writing multiple lines of code, and the programs might be very small. So I would not want to create one file for each of those programs. So rather we will use this particular thing. And what happens is that at the end of the session, I can just download the Python file. So I will have just one Python file with all the stuff that I have written, but I can run each of them individually using this particular thing. And I do not need Python installed on my machine as well, right? So that is a great benefit of using this. So I would like everyone to Google search about Google Collab, right? Please do this, whatever I am doing, and open this link. Okay, Google Collab. So let me start it from scratch. Let me call it test, and let me just close this. So, okay, so let us do from scratch, and first time I will come here, I will just click this, okay, and you might be getting some pop-up of welcome and all. You can close that. You have to basically come here, right, and say create a new notebook. Okay, is everyone following along? Is everyone following along? Can everyone confirm?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. ठीक है. So let's open a book. Let's open a new notebook, and we will call it. Let it open. We will first of all change the name and call it session 5. Python practice or something like that. So in this session, we will be taking some basic examples in Python, and so let's just discuss this once. Before we start, we have to come here and say connected to hosted runtime, right? What this will do is basically Google will give its own server for you to run anything you want, right? So it has basically allotted you a Python 3 compute, Google Compute Engine backend with 12.72 GB RAM and 107 GB space. Okay, so basically, why is it giving you this much is because Google wants people to research on deep learning, and deep learning problems want require a lot of RAM and this space. So basically, that is why Google is providing this such that people can learn, right? So we can totally leverage this, right? So anyway, apart from everything here, what I can see is I'll just delete this. What I can see is that I have two things here. One is code and one is text. So I will use both of them, and whenever I will want to write some heading, right, a heading or a comment, right, I will use the text. Otherwise, I will use code. Okay, a code is a block in which I can run a line and execute it. Okay, if I say int, oh, sorry, not int, I equal to 5 and then print I, right? So basically, I can execute this particular line of code by clicking here. Okay, when I click here, the output of print, basically whatever is the output of this block will be printed here, right? So, and then if I want to add some text, I can just add like this is the Python session 5, uh, whatever. Okay, and then I just click enter it. I press shift enter, right? I see that I get this line which again is editable, but I enter it and I get this. Okay, so this I will use for heading. Let me delete all of this and start the session. So what we will do is that we will define a problem in like headings and comments, and then we will solve the problem in these blocks of code, and then we will move to next problem in next block of code. Right? This will be easy for us to track, and we will not have to run the whole file again and again. Right? So this is helpful. So so we have a start, right? We can start from here. Everyone has this screen, right? So uh, and one more thing. So let's say you want to use a file on your own platform, right? Basically on your own system. So what you can do is you can come here and upload a file, right? You already have some sample data here, that is fine. But you can upload your own file, and I can say that this particular thing, uh, you know, is here. Then what I can do is that I can use this particular thing here, this particular function, and paste it here, right? Now what happens is that let me just delete these ones. Okay. What happens is that now this file is recognized because it is available here, and when I click it, I run it. Uh, CSV is not defined because I will have to import it. So let me just import CSV. So I'm just trying to show how this works, because later on also you can use it for your own things. So I've seen that no error was there. If I print data now, I could see that now will print it has printed all the rows here. Okay. So basically you can upload your own files on this system, but it was throwing a warning that when you will close this, right, your files will be lost. So only for some time it will retain those files, but obviously you can upload your own files and use it here. So it is very useful. Let me delete this and delete this and start from scratch. Okay, I'll just close this. So let's say let's start from very basics, like if you want to see what your version of your system is. So let's say I mean you've already learned Python, right? And you're working on a big system where uh, the Python versions are different. Some of the packages are legacy packages, right? And you cannot use it on your new system, right? Or you will have to do some modifications based on the version, right? So you will simply do import sys. So what we are checking is, right, currently we are connected with their own runtime, like Google's runtime. So whatever Python version Google will be using, I can check that. So how I will do that is I will just import a module called sys Python built-in module, right? And I will say sys.version. When I will run this, this will give me Python 3.6.9, right? But if I check Python .org, uh, it says Python 3.8.5. So basically, they are using an even older version, right? That is fine if I see the same thing on my own machine, right? Import sys and sys.version, right? So I can say that I am using 3.7.6. I am also using some older version. You might be using something else. So why this check needs to be made is, let's say you are working in Power Field and you find a module which is related to what you want to solve or work on. But that module is very old and you want to do some changes, something there based on you know whatever the input is. So you can check the version, and so let's say you check that if it is below that version or above that version, right? Accordingly, you can take some decision, right? So this is how you can check version of Python. So they are using 3.6.9. Okay. So now proceed. Let's proceed with very simple examples. So we have seen how to take inputs, right? In the last lecture, we saw how to take inputs to command line as well as input the input function, right? So we will just try that how to do that. So let's say I want to. So here I would first add a text and say that I want to. So this is my problem statement, right? I will call it one and say write a program, write a program to which uh, basically calculates the area of a circle, right? Right? Very simple example. So, but based on user input, okay? Whatever user input uh, the user provides, based on that, the area needs to be calculated. So, what would be the user input? Obviously, we know that area of a circle is pi r square. So, it could be simply uh, the user input will be r. So, the user input equal to radius, right? So, simply we have to do this. How we will do it is that we will create a variable, right? We will create a variable to first hold the input from the user, right? So let's say that variable is radius. Okay. So we will say radius equal to let's say something. So here we would not be able to use those command line arguments, right? So but let's try input and say enter the radius, right? Doesn't know if it's first here. So this basically just printed a text. This is not what I wanted to print here. So in a text space, I actually wrote some code which will not work. I hope everyone got that why it did not work. Okay. So when I would run that, I can see that I have input here which says that enter the radius, right? So you can enter anything. Let's say 5. I entered. When I entered it, now radius, right? Radius has the value of 5. Okay. So let me open one more this thing, because what I'm doing is that I am also running this line by line. But what we want to do is ultimately have a file where everything that we practice today is available, right? So I will again say that session 5 Python practice, and this will be another file which I will have. Okay. Main. So this is the one that I will share with you, and this is the one on which I can show some of the operations that I'm doing, right, to explain. Okay, so I just want to calculate the area of a circle, right, pi r square. So I can see that one of the things that I'm missing here is that how I would get pi. Well, obviously I know that pi is 3.14, but I don't want to use pi. So there is a built-in module called math, right? So if I say import math, this module has all the functions and other things which you can do with numbers, right? So it's math library, right? It has all the basic functions related to math. So from this library, what you can do is that you can say math.py, okay? And when you do math.py, you can say that math.py has this value. So you can directly use this particular, parameter from this math module. So how you will do it, how you will start is that simply you want to just take this input and multiply it by pi r square. So how you will write it is that it will enter the radius, and then what it will do is that whatever the radius will be in the form of a float, right? Okay. So sorry, this one I'll have to open one more new notebook. This is because this one and this one is same. Sorry, just a few minutes. Okay, right. So we are here, right? So we are writing the first program. So what we want to do is simply return pi r square, right? So what we will do is simply do area equal to first we will include math library, right? As we saw. So from math import pi, right? From math library, I am importing pi. This we have not seen how this works, but we will see it how to import only a particular function that we want to use, right? So we don't need to import the whole library. We can only import a few things, right, that we want to use. So area will be equal to pi r square. Pi, into r is radius into square. So radius square is like this, right? So radius square. So this is how radius square will happen. Radius square will be multiplied by pi, and then the final area will come. So when I run this, I can see that a radius is asked. When I click enter, it gives me the area of the circle. Okay, and so here the input is also printed because that is what I had printed here. So I hope this is fine. This solves our first problem. Basically, what we simply saw is that um, now if I want to create a dynamic function, so basically, obviously this is dynamic and uses a user input. But since last time I saw these functions, and if I wanted to create a function such that I can, use values like this. For example, I have 0 here from the file, and I want to use 0 here apart from this particular thing. What I can do is I can create a function, right? What I can say is that I will just say that here defining a function. So what I will do is that I will say depth area circle, okay, and it takes a radius, okay, and then it returns something, right? So it returns what? It returns just pi into radius into square. Okay? So this is very simple. Now how it is used is that I'll just delete it. So how I can use is that I can say area print area circle and say 5. Okay, so this is how we last time saw that we can call a function and pass a parameter, which is whichever whatever is required. So now it should print. Now let's put it 6 here, so it prints a different value. It will not ask me, and also let me just uncomment these two lines. Okay, so now if I run this, what happens is that it gives me the area according to 6. So but now this 6 can be, can come from here, or file, or wherever you like. So once you define the function, you can again do it for a different input, right? So let's say you wanted to calculate different, so you have row by row different inputs, and you want to calculate area using all of those inputs. So you can do something like this on each line and then calculate. So we have two areas now. So this is how you can define a function and find area of a circle. Okay, so I hope this is clear to everyone. Let's move to the uh, second thing that we want to learn. Okay, right? So we would simply want to take again two user inputs, which we have already seen, and then uh, in fact not two. Let's take user input uh, in one line, and then convert them into some other data type, right? So let's try it. What we want to do is that I want to write a program to take a sequence of comma uh, separated values and generate a list out of it, right? So what I want, so let's say I wanted a user to give me some inputs as a comma separated value, right? Like this, 1 2 3 4 5, and I wanted to give an output like a list, right? 1 2 3 4 5. So because I'm later I can use it and do whatever I want. So it's just again how to take a user input from a user. So what I can say is that let me define a variable called entries to hold what are entries are given by the user. So I will again use the input function and say that enter the comma separated values, and then I will define one more variable to hold the list. Okay, so basically what I want is that those are comma separated values, right? If I can somehow remove the comma between them and read each of them, so I can create a list then, right? I can use the list function that we've seen earlier while converting from tuple to list, and we can use the same function here to convert it into a tuple, right? So list as well as tuple. So we will, just see here how we can, take an input, convert it into list as well as tuple. Again, this is just to see kind of a typecasting, right? You are casting some basically a string into a list and a tuple. Not exactly casting, but you can understand it like that. So I will just say that entries. So let's say you are getting a input as this. So what should be your first thought, right? Your first thought should be that if I could somehow split this particular thing into over 1 2 3 4 5, then I would get each of them individually, right? And then I can just pass it into a variable, pass it into a tuple or list, and then I will get it, right? So let's say I do not know how to split it, right? Obviously very simple thing, but how I would do is that I would just find online that how to split a string in Python. Okay, in Python is required, right? And so I'm just trying to make you understand that how you will Google when you will be stuck on something, right? You will basically search what you want to do, right? You will not put a generic thing here and say that how to how to scrape us how to scrape Google, right? Or how to automate Google Collab. You might get something, right? People write articles on all that also, but let's not get there. We want to break our problem into very simple steps, very small steps, and then wherever we are getting stuck, we want to search that online. Okay, so we are getting stuck on split, so we search how to split a function, and it told me that string dot split. So basically, there is a there is a function called split, right? Which says that there should be a separator and max split. What I will do is that generally I would want to search for a Stack Overflow link, right? Or I will specifically say Stack Overflow. Okay. What that will do is that it will give me links from Stack Overflow. And what happens with Stack Overflow is that obviously it's a user user generated community. And you will also have to see that which is the latest result. Obviously, you can see old results also, but latest result you will try to find and you will open it. Okay. So this is one of the latest results. It says, how does Python split function works? Actually, you don't want to know that. You just want to know how to split it. So you can see that. And here you saw that if you have a string like this, okay, this is exactly what you want, right? Something like this. And you want to convert it to something, how you will do it. So it says that you will use something called split and say, you know, s dot split, what you want to split on, okay, what to split at, right? So what you will say here is that very simply, you will know that this particular thing is in this form. So I would want to split it at a comma. So you will say that entries dot split, right? And it says like at what thing, right? What to split at. We want to split it at a comma. Right? Here it has comma and a space, so it has put comma and a space, but we have only commas, right? We will not be having any space like this, right? This is how we will take input, so we will not put it, right? We will just say simple comma. Sorry. Okay. Now what will happen is that this thing will be split, and whatever the output of this thing is, it is a list, right? This particular thing returns a list, will be held into num list, so we don't need to do anything to generate a list now. And if I just print the num list, okay, I will see that the comma separated values, let's say 245, 324, 23 and 223, okay, 232. So if I do this, I can say that all of those values have now come in the list, right? Because when we do this entries dot split, right, string dot split, what it does is that it puts all of those values as a list only. So if I do, let's say, uh, this shade is doing, doing great, right? This is a string, right? And I do split on it and say split it at a space, right? What will happen is that it will just split this string at 4 places. Okay. Okay. So similarly we have a string here, whatever will come will be a string that is splitting it at a comma, and then whatever the values are held as a list. So we don't need to do anything to generate a list. So anytime we will do a split, it will be a list. Now we want to get a tuple out of it. So simply we can pass a list to a tuple. So we can say that tuple, uh, let's call it num tuple. Okay, tuple of num list. And when now you say num tuple, tuple, it will print the tuple. Okay. So again, some values 54, 34, something else, 122. Okay. So now if I print it, it will give me a tuple. This particular thing, as we saw, starting from simple normal parenthesis and normal ending parenthesis, whatever in between, separated by comma, is a tuple, right? So this is a tuple. Okay, so very simple thing. Again, we saw that how we can get an input and then to change it into other forms. You could have stored it into a dictionary and given each of these few things some keys. I will just quickly show how you could have done that. So let's say let me run it here for an example. Okay. So I will say this thing and I will say 23, 32, 23, 23 or 24 or 20, 56. Okay. So all of these values are there, right? Now my num list is a list. And what I can do is I can iterate over it, right? So I could just simply say for I in for num in num list, num in num list, just right. I could do something, right? So if I just define a dictionary here, uh, numdict, okay, and initialize it like this, having no value for start. So I can say numdict, okay, and numdict, let's say num, okay, equal to always ABC, okay. So what that will do is that it will create a numdict, okay, and now obviously you manipulated it and created it to something else, right? So that is how you can do different operations. It's just that you need the thing inside Python, and then you can do anything you want. Similarly, I mean, since you have seen all of this, I hope and we will obviously see it later, so you will know how to use all of these things and convert it like this. Right? So we just need an intuition, and then we can do it. Third thing we will see is that let's say I have some files and I want to print an extension of a file. So I would simply use a similar thing. Just first define the problem, print the extension of a file. So let's say I was building a web application, and I would want to check that what is the file extension such that you know uh, I see that the correct file is being uploaded. So let's say I have a file name PDF file. Okay, so I'll say let's say file PDF equal to let me give a string name right now, because ultimately file dot read or something, ultimately you can extract this string out of there and then use it. So I'll just simply use the string here for demonstration purposes. So organization report dot pdf, let's say, okay, dot pdf, and the second one I will choose is file, let's say xlx, right? xlsx. So I will use that client data dot xlsx, that's it. So sorry, let's say these two files are uploaded and you just wanted to check if the file had an extension xlsx, right? So what you will do is that you will first want to see that if simply that what is after this dot, right? So you would always want to check what is after this dot. Okay, so it is a very simple case like this here, right? Where we had comma separated values, and we wanted to just check that what was after every comma. Okay, so you can simply understand it like this also. So what you will do is that you will do file underscore PDF dot split at dot. So what this will do is that again this is a string, right? When string is split at something, that divides it into two parts. So one part will be this and one part will be this. So it will create a list, and let's say I say that PDF list, okay, and call it file.split. Now what will happen is that this file, this particular thing holds a list, right? And in that list, always and always, let's say there are more dots here, dot here, dot here, and dot here, and dot here. So let's say there are so many dots. right? But obviously dot will not be here, right? Then the extension is invalid. Okay, so there will be no dots in between the extension, but there can be more dots in the file names, and which is fine. So what will happen is that only after the last dot we will have the extension name. Okay. So simply, and we have seen that when something is a list, I can get the last entry in that list by simply negative referencing, which is -1. Okay, so I can, it was list, now it is PDF. I can just say that PDF extension, XTN, okay, extension. So it will hold PDF, right? Similarly, I can say that XLS extension will be file XLS, right? Dot split at what? Dot split at dot, right? And obviously this will always be the last one, okay? So again, at this dot, it will be 1, 2, 3. It will be split into 3 parts, but again, only the last one will be the extension name. So I can just simply print it and see what they were. So PDF XTN and XLS XTN. Okay. So I'll just print it and see that they were PDF and XLS6. What job I print? Uh, Very simple thing, but taking time. So it says that PDF and XLSX, right? So very simple. Always, if I even want to put more dots, wherever, any other thing, uh, anything, the extension will always be this, and I can just check it again. It will be PDF and XLSX. So we also, so now we have seen that how we can check the extension of file. Let's say you were building a data science program where, the first step itself was to check. I mean, you definitely want to check, right, that the file that anyone is trying to upload, is it क्या बोलते हैं, that same extension that you want to use or not, right? Otherwise you will throw an error, right? You will say that no, this is not what I want to use, right? And how you will throw an exception is what we will see very soon in exception handling, right? So but no need to worry now. So this is how we can see the extension. Let's tackle some more problems, right? So let's say I wanted to write a Python program, right, that basically compute some expression. So let me try something. Okay, let me try to write something. N square plus n square plus 2 n square plus uh, let's say 4n plus n plus 6 pi square. Okay, so let's say there is some expression called y, right, and n is equal to user input, right? User input. Okay, so let me just comment this. Before that, let me just define a bit of the problem. This is like our fourth problem. What we want to do is evaluate an expression as per user input number. Okay, this is what we want to do, and the expression is uh, evaluate y, right? And n is the user input. So I just comment all of them. Right? So for demonstration purposes here, every time we will try to use read input, or we will just define a variable to hold some user input. Okay, because ultimately we can obviously know that there are multiple ways. Okay, so let's proceed. First, what we want to do is take a user input. So let's again do that and say that user input, let's see, call it user input itself, and call it input, enter a number. So this number will be a string again, so I will say int, right? Or I can also say float. Let me allow the user to input some decimals numbers as well. So user input is fine now. And then I want to evaluate this thing. So I can say that, let's say I call it evaluated, and ask it to hold n square. So how I can do n square is simply, let me call it a simpler, shorter thing called n, because then I can simply do this and it will be easy for you to understand. One more thing I can see is that there is pi here, so I will have to import pi from math library. So I can say from math import pi, right? So now let's try to do this here. So it says n square, right? N square is simple. So I can just say n square like this. And then it says 4n. So 4 into n is fine. And this is also simple. But next it says that NNN. What it means is that if the user is inputting, if, so let's say if user input equal to 7, then NNN equal to 777. Okay, so this is what it means here, right? So I hope this is correct, this is fine. So what I will do is, so but I mean, how will I do this, right? Here I'm taking a float, and how will I represent a float like this, right? Because there is no way I cannot put n like this, because it doesn't make sense. NNN will try to find a variable called NNN, which we have not defined, right? So we cannot do NNN. We cannot do n star n, because that's not what we want to do. We don't want to multiply 7 into 7 into 7, right? So how do we do that? So simple. We have already learned how to do some typecasting. What we will do is that ultimately we have to get something as a float, right? So that number should be again something which is here, you know, something which is, I mean, you can do these operations between same types, right? If this is float, then this has to be float, right? So ultimately, whatever we want to do, we want to have a float, and then what I will do is that I will just use string concatenation, right? Using plus signs to concatenate this string. So basically, let me define the strategy. So if input is 7, then NNN is 7. So what can happen is that if I can convert this particular thing into a string and repeat it 3 times, then convert it back into an integer or a float, then my NNN will be this. So let's say I convert this thing into a string first, right? And I call it uh, what is it, n, right? String of n, and then just multiply it by 3, right? What will happen is that this string will be multiplied 3 times, right? So this particular value is equal to this, right? I can check this. If I just come here and do something like this and say n equal to, let's say, 7, and print it, it will say 777, right? This is what I want. Okay, so my this particular problem is fixed. Now the further what I can do is that 6 into pi, right? And pi ka square. So again, double square, double star, and 2. So I have defined this expression like this, very simple, right? Okay. So now I can evaluate and just print it, right? Evaluated already would have that. So I will just print it. Okay. So it asks me for a number. Let's say 7. Our own favorite number. So it says could not convert it into a float, right? So this will not work because obviously this particular thing will not be able to be converted into a float, right? So what we will do, this strategy will only work for an integer. Okay, so let's convert it into integer. For obviously for float, we will have to devise some other strategy. Actually, let's use float only because it is better. And what we can do is that we can say here, right? So anyway, if I have something like this, right, 7.07, right, then what does it mean, right? It should be something like, it cannot be something like this, right? 7.07.07. So it can only be a integer, right? We actually took a lot of liberty and defined it as a float because we wanted to take all the numbers, but it would not be possible like this, right? It cannot be defined like this. So let's only use integers for our problem. And again, the funda is clear, right? What we wanted to do. So we simply wanted to evaluate an expression, but obviously we have seen that it would not work for floats, right? Because of this particular thing. But let's evaluate it now. And now it will ask me for a number. I will enter 7. uh, Again, it throws me some errors. So obviously, all of these errors you will also face when you will be running. So you have to see what it says. It says unsupported operand type for start or power for string and integer. So it says that somewhere I have a power, obviously here, right? So this is wrong, right? I cannot put a power on a string. So I will just remove one of them. And I've seen that when I multiply a string by something, right, number of times, it just repeats that thing number of times. Here I have converted this integer into string and repeated it a few times. So let's evaluate this again, and I will put 7 again. So it calculates it, right? Let me put some other number. Let me run this again and say uh, 9. So it will calculate it. So this is how we can define and evaluate any expression in Python. Just have to again check how the input is and how it is to be converted into something, devise a strategy, and then you can do it. Okay, let's say you did not know how to multiply a string two times and repeat a string. So you could just simply say how to repeat sorry how to repeat a string in Python. So it will just give you some results, and here you can find stack overflow something to certain length. Okay, anyway, you can find this and check that it will be using something to repeat it. Okay, see, something like this we are doing. Okay, so it repeats ABC 7 times. So obviously you can Google whenever you are stuck and find the solution to that problem. Let's try some more stuff. Let's try some. We right now we're just seeing how we're taking user input, but uh, let's try some functions. Okay. So let's say I want to define a function to, let's say I want to take a function. Uh, Let me just write it here. I want to define a function to calculate the difference between a number and some number. Okay, let's say some number is that number is 50, and right. So only the difference. But if there is a condition that if the difference is greater than 10, let's say 10 or 5, then return the square of the difference. Okay, difference. So what we want to do simply is that, let's say I have a number 73, right, as an input. I want to create a function to give a difference, right? But so 73 minus 50 is 23, but 23 is greater than 10. So what it should do is return me 23 ka square. Okay, 23 is to the power 2. Otherwise, if the number is less than 3, let's say my input is 53, so it gives 3, which is less than 10, right? So it should print out 3. Okay, so this is my input and this should be my output, based on that. So I hope this is clear. Let's try to code this, right? I hope all of this makes sense. All of this can be used somehow in your day-to-day operations, and I hope you can figure out something looking at this. And later also, obviously, you will find this helpful. So let's define a function called difference. Ultimately, I want to return the difference, and let me take a number. Okay. So defining a function name and parameters which will be going to the function, and then I will just check, right? I have to check that what I have checked, right? If that is thing, this difference is greater than 5 or less than 5, right? This one is greater than 5. I'm sorry, here it is 5, right? It's 5, yeah. Greater than 10 or less than 10. Okay. So I will just check if the number, which is the input, is number minus 50. Okay, this is what I want to check, right? Number minus 50. So if number minus 50 is greater than 10, right? Then what happens? Then you return the square of difference. Okay. So then you return what? The square of difference, which is number minus 50 will be square, will be difference, right? And then we want to do the square of it. Okay. So we'll just do double star here. Okay. Otherwise, the other option is that we can just return the difference. Okay. So we can just return number minus 50. Right. So we have implemented this. Any number that is input here, if that number is greater than 10, right, it will square the number and return it. If the number is less than 10, then it will simply return the number. Okay, let's now run it so we know how to call it. Okay. So we will say difference and 73. Let's try 73 and let's try difference of 53. Okay, let's run it. So obviously, when I do something like this, it is only printing the last one. So I will have to separately say print. When there are multiple print lines now, you have to specify print here. Otherwise, it will print itself. So when I do this, I see that I have 529 as well as 3. Right? 23 square is 529. Okay. So I think this is fine and understood by everybody. So I'll just call it the fifth problem. Right. So until now, I hope there are no issues and everyone was able to follow along. Okay. Let's try some simple, techniques in Python. So basically, the thing is that there are a lot of something called Pythonic stuff in Python, right? So basically, those are kind of tricks which are only available in Python and uh, which makes things easy, which makes things easy for you to code as well as others to understand, right? And that is why they're called Pythonic things. So let's say I wanted to check, if a number is available in a particular list, I could just simply do. Obviously, what I'm trying to do now is not Pythonic, called those, quote unquote Pythonic things. But क्या बोलते हैं, these are, just some of the stuff this is only Python makes things easy. So I could just simply say that available. Okay, what I'm trying to do is that simply check if 3 is available in 345. So what I can do is that I can use this in function, in operator, and this checks if 3 was available in this list, right? So you can see that simply you could easily check that 3 was available in the list, but 35 obviously, uh, you know, it will not be available, so it will not print anything, right? It did not print anything. So 35 is not available. Right? So this is how you can do very simple things in Python. You can check something is available or not available. And if I had to see some more stuff, just like this. Um, let's leave it for now, and we will see it basically later, because all of those things are like list comprehension and other of those things we will separately discuss. Also, we'll practice that. So let's leave it until then. So let me take one more example here. I would just wanted to uh, check if a number exists in a list. Okay, very simple. You can similarly check uh, if a string is available in a list. Okay, ABC, ABC, and here you will say just ABC. Okay, so it will print available, right? So similarly, you could check other things. Very simple. Check if the string. So now let's say I wanted to, uh, you know, take a user input and print the product table of it. So let's say, as we used to do 2 into 1 until 10, right? Or for any table, it's, let's say 27 into 1 until 10. So I want to take any user input from user and then, just print the product of that table from 1 to 10. So let's say I had put 2. So my output would be 2, 4, 4, 6, 8, 10, okay, until dot 20, right? Until here. So this is how we will do it. Just let me define it. Very simple. This is not a problem. Okay, we will define the problem separately. We are just checking a few things in Python, and I'm just keeping it here for reference, right? So I want to print uh, multiplication multiplication table multiplication table of a given number user input. Okay, let me just define a variable, right? Let me define that number as uh, num, num as 1. So I mean, obviously you can say that, but let's call it anything. So I will just do for I in, and before that let me show you one more thing, right? So we have already seen something like this for I in range 0 to 10, print I. So we already seen that. So it prints numbers from 0 to 9. What it does is that it's simply, this is an iterable, right? We saw in the last lecture what iterable are, on which we can iterate using a for loop. So this is an iterable, okay? And in this iterable, I mean in this particular thing, what there was, uh, a list would have been stored at the back. So I was able to iterate over it and print those numbers. So how range worked? If I see range 0 to 10, what it says is that it just returns me something. And if I want to check the type of it, type of range, it is basically some data type itself, right? Obviously, this is built on top of lists. Okay, so but if I had to do something like this, 0, 10, and say 2, right? One more parameter I'm putting here, right? What it will do is it will again print something like this. But if I iterate over it and say 0, 10, 2, what happens is that now I can also specify the steps at which this thing is to be taken. Generally, we use range to generate a sequence, okay, and then iterate over it. Range gives me an iterable on which I can iterate and do some operation, on the iterator, right? So iterator holds each of these values and then you can do some operation. Here, what happens is that when you're generating a sequence, right, you can also specify one more parameter called step, right? So in a range function, what typically happens is that you define a start point. So let's say I define a start point called 105 and I define an end point, right? Let's say I call it 250. And then I can define one more thing called steps. Let's say I didn't define anything. What will happen is that, this will hold values from 105 till 250. Okay. And just print it. 105 till 220, 249. But if I said that one more thing called a step and said that take a step at 5, take 105 and then take 1010 and then take, the next 5 after 5, then what happens is that it will only print after taking that step in mind. So this is another way to generate sequences, and you can use the range function for that. So range generates a sequence and returns an iterable for you to iterate and do something over it. When you can define start, end, and you can also define a step on which that sequence needs to be generated, right? So how I can use this range in my problem, right? I want to multiply, basically take a user input and then multiply all of those numbers. What I can do is that I can simply define a thing called range and say this, right? And then I could say that the product will be equal to the number into I. Okay. So let me first define this. What happens here? When I say range 0, 11, and 1. What happens is that this holds value from 0 to 10. Okay. As we've already seen, right? This holds values from 0 to 10. Right. So if I just need to multiply whatever number that I get from this number, right? That would be all. So that is all I'm doing here. Whatever number that I am, putting as an input, I am just taking 0, 1, 2, 3, each one by one, each one by one, and just multiplying that number with that. Okay. Any issues? Okay. So just move. So what I'm doing here is that simply multiplying it back, and then I can just print it, right? Print and say product. Product. Okay, every time it will just multiply it, print it. So this will just output the product of these numbers, right? From 5 to 5, 10, 15. If my input was, let's say, 11, it would give the table of 11. Okay, and similarly any other table that you want. Okay, so if you had to print multiplication table of a given number, this is the way. Okay, obviously you could define a function. Let's define a simple function for product like this and take a number, and then what we could do is that for I in range of 1 to 11 to 1, and then would have said product, basically result equal to uh, num into I, right? And then uh, simply printed only. That's not returning. Then I could have simply called this product and said a number, and that would have done it. Just num into not one side. So it will just print me those numbers. Right? So this is how you can define a function. Right. So now let's proceed to some other problem, and also let's try to do some other things using already available functions in Python. For example, you wanted to you know uh, find the difference difference between two lists. Rather, before that, let's check how to find all the unique values in list. So check if all values are distinct in a list. Okay. So what we will have a list as an input, and then let's define a list for num list, and it has some inputs, right? Let's say it has 25 some numbers. Okay, so I put down some numbers here. So I'll have to check. So if I have all the values are distinct in list, obviously this is not a distinct list. Right? We have the 23 repeated a few times. Okay? So we will just check. How we can check is simply by uh, saying to. I'll just show you a different way to write the statement. You length of num list. This is called shorthand if, but let's just see how this works and then understand. Center num list. So we already saw in the last, I think, lecture there, in last to last lecture, where we saw that how sets are used, and we saw that set is basically a uh, unique unordered collection of uh, entities, entries, whatever you want to say. So whenever you will give set a list, what it will do is that it will find all the unique values in that list, right? So basically, it will hold all the unique values in there. So if you do this, all the values which are repeated in here in this num list will be gone, right? So what it basically says that length of num list, basically length of this, if it is equal to length of the unique values, right? These are the unique values, right? If the length of unique values and length of the list that I have is same, then obviously it is true, right? Let me print this. Else false. So this is another notation that you've not seen. All of these are Pythonic stuff. Obviously not required, but as you go more into the language and you use this in day-to-day lives, right? You tend to use all of these stuff. Not now, but as you become expert or even intermediary, you tend to use this stuff. What is basically says that it's just beauty of Python. You can it's simple like English. It says that the if this condition is true, right? If this condition holds, then true, otherwise false. Right? Very simple. True if length this one is equal to this, otherwise false. Right? Simple. So it says false because obviously they are repeating elements. So this is not a distinct list. So let me just remove a few, or let me define a new numbers list and say 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, all unique numbers. Let me just comment it. Obviously, num list has been redefined here, so it will not be holding that value if I had uncommented it, but I still commented it. And now it says true because all the values are unique. Right, so this is how you can check if the list that is there, you know, generally you will have most of the things as a list, string, or I don't know. This is not a very hard statement because obviously there might be only dictionaries depending on where you work. So obviously, but in simple examples, you generally have this. So we do some operations on this. So let's proceed now, and let's check if let's say I have two lists and I want to check if the entries of any of the lists is available in the second one and only return the ones which are not available in the second group. So let me, if I have to define this, which problem is this? It's sixth problem. Okay? So the sixth problem I'm defining. So let's say I want to do the difference between the elements of two lists, right? That's all I want, right? Difference between the elements of two lists. So let's say, right now, that's what I just explained, that two lists. So I have to check if second one is available in the first, and print the difference. So that I can do very easily, right? By converting it into set. Let's say let me consider these two only because we already have it. So what it says, that difference between two lists, right? I can see that obviously none of these are there. Let me call it num list 2 and call it num list 1. Obviously none of these are there, so this would not be a great example. Let's use some of the values which are already there in that. So 235, right, 23 and 4542 and 64, right? And then let's use some unique values of this particular 654 and 225 and some more. So now what I have to do is that the values which are only in this list but not in this list, okay, right? So how I can do that? Right? How I can do that is by first of all taking only the unique elements, right? This has some repeated elements. This also has some repeated elements. No, this doesn't, but that's fine, right? This has some repeated elements. So when if I wanted to do the difference between two elements, right? Difference between two lists, right? Difference of uh, difference of elements between two lists. Right? This is the right one. So what I could do is that first I will need to have unique values. So let me just define num set 1 because set contains unique value, right? I will just say num set 1. Sorry, num set 1 is equal to set of just num list 1. Okay? Num list, and then num set 2 is equal to set of num list 2, right? So now I have unique values, right? Now what I can simply do is that check now these two are sets, right? Now I can search online and say that difference of uh, two sets in Python, right? If I do the difference, I will get it, right? That I have understood already. So any one difference between two lists, right? We directly have this answer here. That's exactly what we're trying to do. So it says that. So you want to, yeah, get difference between two lists, right? So what it is doing is that it is creating both of them as a set and simply doing a negative, difference, minus, right? So you could do that, or otherwise there is one more function. If I go back and see here, there is one more function called difference, right? So you could do this thing. Right? You could obviously do a minus b, but you could do that dot difference and pass a parameter called setB. So let's try it here. Let's try actually both of them. So I can just say now that I have both of them as sets, I can just say that num set uh, num set num, num set 2 minus num set 1. Okay, because I want to wanted to take the difference of this one with this one, remove all the elements which are there in this one from this one, right? So let's see what this means. So it printed me only the elements which are unique to num list, right? We could have always done dot difference, and let's check that also. Difference and say num set one. It could have produced the similar result, right? It gave me a set, and now I wanted to create it back to a list, right? Difference of elements given to list. I could just say, as we already saw, num final list. You could say that list of. Now this is a set, so I could convert it back into a list by simply passing it into a list function, list constructor or function. You can say anything, and when I print the final list, I can see that it had the difference. Okay. So this. So this is how I can. Uh, Obviously, you could do the other thing around one from two. That ways, you would have removed all those elements which are also here, but only unique to this. Okay. So I hope this was understood properly. If any doubts, you can tell me. Obviously, if hello.
Hello, Anup.
Hmm.
Can I install packages here?
You can use a local runtime, right? And on that local runtime, you can have your packages. But actually, most of the packages will already be here. Let me try some preferences. Right, it is already there.
Hmm.
So major packages which come, in Python, I think they will be there. Let me try one more. PS4 import. So yeah, it's already there. I mean, Google will provide you, I think, most of the packages pre-installed here. But in case there is some specific user generated package, right, which is not available on Python package index, right, PyPy, then you will have to use your own like local runtime, right, to get connected here. Anyway,
Okay.
so we will not discover it here, but you already have major packages here, so you don't need to worry. Okay, so let's proceed now, right?
Hmm.
So let's take some more problems and see. So let's try something on a string. Uh, just remove this, delete, and delete, and delete this as well, and then code. So I will just define. Let's say I want to count the occurrence of a character in a string, right? Character, or it can be word also, right? Character or word, anything. The logic would be same. Anyway, so let me define my string. Input string. Let's see, and write the. Let's take a string online, and let's take this. Okay. So this string we have taken here, and what it says is that it says nothing right now. But I want to let's say let me define one more variable called input input character. right? The character I want to take input from the user. And let's say the character that I want to take is A. Right? So again, I mean, this looks like a very like how you would do it, but Python has something inbuilt in for that. And let's say you wanted to count, so you would say count occurrence of a character in Python, right? You directly got it. So there is a function for it called count, right? So you could simply do in input string, right? Dot count. What count? Input character. Right? So this would simply give you, so basically A I think comes 5 times only. E comes more times, so let's call it E and check. Right, E comes 47 times. Right, so obviously we could have done it using a loop, and that is what we will see in the coming things. That if we did not want to use this count, then how would we still be able to count the number of occurrences of E? So let's try it after a few examples. But before that, let's take a simple math problem from our school time. And so let's say I want to create a program which takes the length of sides of a triangle. Okay, so a triangle has three sides, right? So a user input which takes three, user inputs, and then checks whether those inputs can be the sides of a right angle triangle, right? So we need knowledge of two things, right? What a right angle triangle is, and that we already know that in a right angle triangle, the sum of two sides, that is base and height, is equal to hypotenuse. So we will try to exploit that knowledge. And second thing is that, I mean, that's it. I mean, that is what, I mean, that is how we can check. So, but the only thing is that how to take the user input. It's a simple control flow statement. So let's define it once. Let's define it number 7 and call it uh, check if the input numbers are sides of a right angle triangle, right? That should be fine. Right, so we know that in a right angle triangle, a square plus b square is equal to c square, where a and b are base and height, and c is the hypotenuse. So let's first try to take a number. So let me just tell you one thing. In Python, we have till now defined variables like this: 1, b equal to 3, or ABC equal to ABC, whatever. So all of these are variables. But what if you wanted to define all of these three in one line? You could certainly do that, right? You could simply say a comma b comma c equal to 1 comma 2 2 comma ABC, or say this ABC. So what happens is that now you have defined all of the three variables, right, in one line. And as per it is defined after each comma, similarly the values will be defined, and ultimately it will hold that value. So if you check now ABC, obviously it is ABC, right? Because that is how we define it. So so again, this you would have not seen in any other language, but Python has it, so you can call it the Pythonic stuff. So this is how you can. Obviously, this is very useful if you want to swap something. Let's define it: a b equal to 5 comma 6. If you wanted to swap it, you could just say b comma a equal to a comma b. In fact, a comma b equal to b comma a. 5 comma 6. B comma A equal to A comma B. Okay, so what would happen is that um, again a comma b equal to b comma a. Okay, so what would happen is that whatever a and b were here are now placed like this, right, at the opposite side. So now a and b will be 6 and 5. And if I print a and b, you can say that it has been swapped. Right? So it was 5 6, now it is 6 5, right? So this is how you can do swapping in Python very easy. Right? So, but this is only because you can leverage this functionality of Python where you can define multiple variables in one line, and they all can have different types. Okay, let's say a list. So I could define a list here called 1 2 3 4. This would also work, and then LST would be holding that list. Right. So even the data types can be different, and this is one of the very good features of Python. So let's leverage it here. I want to take user input. Uh, so let's call it ABC. Let's see, like A equal to this and B equal to 5 and C equal to 5. Okay. So now what I have to check is simply if A square plus B square equal to C square, right? This is all I have to check. If this condition satisfied, then that is right angle triangle. So it is a simple if-else statement, right? Now you can see that only thing you have to check if this condition is satisfied, and then it is nothing more. So what you will say is that let me define three variables called A, B, and C, right? And let me call A, B, C as some numbers. Let's say 3, 4, 5 for now, because I know that 3, 4, 5 obviously satisfy. We will try with some other number, but let's for now do this. And now what I can say is that you know obviously ABC, not ABC like this, but obviously you may not get it like this in this form, right? You may get it like 5 4 3, right? But this will not be true, right? Or even though the inputs are same, so we'll have to somehow uh, find a way to initialize these values accordingly. So let me define one more variable here and uh, call it BCA, sorry, ABC only, let's say, and then call it 345. So let's say this is how, or 543. This is how the user had put the entry. But if the user had put the entry like this, the user could put, like, I have not asked the user to put it in order, right? The base first, the height first, the hypotenuse first. It's up to the user that however he wants to put, in whichever order he wants to put the values, he can put, right? The 4 could have been the first value, and 435 could have been the value, right? But I still want to check if these three, right, in any order, are the uh, sides of a triangle. So what I will do is that now ABC, right? What I will do is that I will say sorted first. I will now I can see that this is a string, right? Let me define it as a string as a user input. Now this is a string, right? So I will have to first split this string at comma, right, to get each of those numbers, and then I will have to assign it each to each value, like each individually. So what I can do is that ABC dot split, right? Split at comma, right? This would give me 4, 3, and 5 in a list, right? Now they are in a list, but if I define like this, only A will be defined like a list, okay? But I want them to be given each of these values. So what I can say is that, and this obviously will be a text, text list containing some strings, right? Not integers or something. But I want ultimately all of these to be integers, right? So what could happen is that uh, let me not define it here but here, and call it str list, right? Str list equal to this, and now I can just say that str list of 0, str list of 1, and str list of 2. Okay, obviously this is one way, but this is not a very great way, right? So I will just introduce one more thing with all of you, which is called map function, right? Map function basically maps a particular function to each of the values in a list, right? So let's see how it works. So let's say uh, I had to use map, and I would say in uh, 2, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So what would happen is that, and then if I convert it into a list, what would happen is that all of these strings, the list of string, was now converted into an integer. So how map function works is that this is map. The first argument is the function that you want to apply to all of them, and these functions can be particular, right? I mean, you know, these functions are only those which can be applied on these ones, right? You would not be able to use substring here because it is only one character. Right? I mean, you can use, but you would not be able to use this plus this, right? Something like this. So basically, only the functions that you could perform operations using on these, you could use it. And then the next thing you would say is the input, right? The input that you would want it to be applied on. So let's say I said 2, 3, 4, only these, and this is how. So it would give me a map object, right? And map object can be converted it back into a list object by simple passing it into a list function or generator or constructor. Right now, this one, this one is now converted into a float, right? So we will use this particular thing called map to convert the input that we're getting from user into what we want to use, right? So we can say A, B, C as excuse me, list of what? List of map, and since all of these values, right, this one's here, are what? Are strings, and I want to convert it into integer. So I will say integer of string list, right? String list. Okay. So now ABC has a list, of strings. So let me just copy this, right? Copy this particular thing and paste it here. And in place of abc.split, let me put it this here and call it string list. Now this is the final list, because until here you had a list of strings, but here uh, you finally converted into a number, right? Okay. Now you can use these numbers. This list has these numbers. Now obviously you could use something like this, or let me comment it at, or you could use something like this. What you did was you took all of the elements in num list and converted it in like this. So ultimately what you can do is now say sorted, right? Sorted of num list. So when you said sorted of num list, right? What happened? So let me just show you. A, B, C equal to 0, 1, A equal to 0, B equal to 1, and C equal to 2. So whenever you define something like this and assign it to a list, so obviously each of those elements are mapped by default. So this is again something very unique in Python, right? You can also leverage this and just since only we have three numbers here, right? You could sort it, right? And then you will just, if I use sorted of 5, 4, and 3, right? I will get 3, 4, 5. And this is how I want it, right? I want to have the least two numbers, square of the least two numbers equal to the larger one, right? So that is why I'm sorting it, right? If my this particular order was even any different, even then ultimately I will have it into the lowest to highest form, so that my A, B, and C are each defined rightly. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now it is very simple. I have to just check if A square, sorry, A square plus B square equal to, right, C square. If it's true, then just print, right? Uh, it is a right angle triangle, or just say that else it is not. Else, no. So now it will, now since I can see that this is the right angle triangle, it might print that it is a right angle triangle. But if I call like 7 here, obviously 4 square plus 5 square is not equal to 7 square, or is it? 25 plus 16 is equal. It is not right. So it will say no, right? So it will print no because it is not. So this is how we can check if something, again, this might be useful to you somewhere, but ultimately the takeaway is that if you have a string like this, how you can convert it into a sorted number of lists, and then apply some evaluation and then check whatever you want and perform operation accordingly, right? So I hope this is clear to everyone. If any issues, please let me know. Right? I hope Sumit and the master and seeker, everything is okay. So I'll proceed. Now next, suppose I want to, let's try some more mathematics stuff, because uh, ultimately we do maths only, right? And anything that we do, we are ultimately trying to compute something or do some operation on the numbers that we have. Mostly we will be wanting to analyze data and draw some insights out of it, right? Or do some automation. Okay, so ultimately we at all of the places we are doing some math. So let's do some more math. And so let me define a problem where I want to solve a system of equations. So my problem is solve a system of equations. So let's say I have two system of equations, ax plus by equal to c, right? And the second one is dx plus equal to f, right? So, and my user inputs, that is a, b, c, d, e, f are variables. Okay, variables. So basically, any number a, we have to ultimately find what x and y would be, depending on the user input a, b, c, d, e, f, right? So, I mean, this should be easy, right? We already know from school that how to solve this system of equations. Basically, if I have to only get x, I will multiply this particular one. So let me just show you. If I multiply it by first equation by d and second equation by a, I get a dx plus uh, b dy equal to cd, right? And the second equation becomes a dx plus e d nahi, eay equal to fa, right? Now I can just subtract both of these, and my y will be equal to uh, fa minus cd minus fa. Let's say cd minus fa divided by mm, bd minus ea, right? So I can simply see that I can define my y like this. So ultimately, it is again very simple, some plus minus only, because system of equations is like that. So ultimately, I have to implement this and take user inputs. So this is the takeaway from this problem. So let's try it again. We will try to use this map function, because we should have some practice on map function. It is an important function. Uh, Depends where it is used. I have not seen used very much, but it has very powerful operations, right? You can do something on a very big data set here, very easy. Anyway, so let's use the map function again here, and let me and again this thing, right? This particular thing that we learned here, right? So we will be saying A, B, C, D, E, F. So we will take all the user inputs in one line, and uh, let's say user input I take here, right? So let's say I'm taking user input using a input form, and let's say the user gave me a string like this and said, 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 45, 4, 5, 6. Let's see, easy. Let's take easy terms for now. So I have defined 6, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Right? But it is, a string, right? I will have to first split it at comma, and then each of those things I will have to map as an integer, right? So very simple thing that I've done here, right? What I can do is that uh, I can just say of list of uh, list of what, user input, user in dot split at comma, right? When I would split it at comma, then I would get a list, but it would be a string. So I would use a map function and map all of them as an integer, right? So I hope this particular line made sense. And then ultimately, since it's a list, due to Python's inherent these operations, right? How this is defined. There are a lot of unique things in Python, right? For example, the other day we were seeing the scoping in Python, and we saw that the for loop, even those iterations were defined in the for loop, that were also available at the zeroth iteration, right? So why did it happen was because that is how it is. It inherently works in Python, right? So, but let's not worry about it. We will understand, and in fact, we will already know as we experience that how all of this works. So here we did that thing, and if I see, just quickly want to see that A, B, C, D, E, and F, what they are. So they are simply 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? Now let me get back to the operation. What I want to do is that I want to get x and y. So my x will simply be uh, no, my y will be cd, right? So I will say c into d minus f into a divided by d into d minus d into d minus e into a. Okay. So this I got my y. and similarly I can get my x. So my x will be if I so we'll have to just do that operation. Just x will be done. So we I think it will be like x equal to df minus ce divided by bd minus ae, right? ea or ae. Okay, so I can simply define x here and say that d into f minus c into e divided by the same thing. Right? We can e into d that remains common and e into e. Okay. So in fact, if this thing is common, let me call it the denom and this, and then I can just use the denom. Now you can define these two system of equations. Now that you have defined these two system of equations, you can give it any a, b, c, d, e, f, and x and y will be printed. So let me print it and say x, x, and x and y. Right? So if I print this, what happens is that x is minus 1, 0 and y is 2. So it gave me x and y's values based on these user input. If I just change a few of them and try to see what happens, right, good bit. So it would just give me a different x and y. Right? Okay. So, but let's try 1, 1, 1, 1. How 1, 1, 1 works? Everything will be 1, right? No need to even. Okay, doesn't work for 1 because obviously the denominator will get 0 and division by 0 is a 0 division error. So 1 will not work. Okay. So these are like edge cases which we generally have to check while building our programs. Right, we will have to do all of these error handlings. Right, so these are like some of the stuff to take away from here. Again, we saw that since all the numbers were same, it was 0 into 0. So I'll just change a few of this. Right, obviously these are parallel lines. If we go back into maths, right, both of the lines are same, those are parallel lines. And then, if they don't intersect, then you cannot have x and y. Okay. So again, let me do it 7. Okay. 6, 7, 8, 9, 8. So now it gave me x 1.4 and y minus 0.2. So simply we have done this, right? I hope this was clear. I think we can move to something more complex, and I think uh, this will be around strings, right? So this is one of the interesting problems, right? So what I want to do is basically there is some rule by which a string is defined, right? So if I write x, uh, xy number 6, right, and z and 1 and 4, hash 4 0 2 3. So if I had written this thing, this was basically coded like x y, and wherever this hash starts, okay, this hash, after this a number will always appear, hash and then a number. What this number signifies is that whatever comes after this number, it is to be repeated this many times, right? So X, Y, number 6 and Z. So Z is to be repeated 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? And then again it says hash 4. Right? It says number 4. 4 times it is to be repeated. What is to be repeated? The next thing, which is 0. So 0 is to be repeated 4 times. Right? And then 2, 2. So ultimately this particular text was written like this, right? So if I had one more text and I would say that mm, DA, sorry, not like this, DAHHH and 0003222 RT or something else. Okay, RTA. So if I wanted to convert this thing back into this form, what it would look like is that, DA is fine, and then I have 4H. So I will say hash 4, 4 and then H, right? So I had 4H, I said hash 4H, and then there were 3 zeros, so I said hash 3 0, right? There were 3 zeros, and then 2 2, so I said hash 2 2, right? Right? Two twos. So hash 2 and 2, and then 4, and then RT, right? RT, and then there were 5A. So I'll say hash 5A. So this particular thing was coded like this, right? So I hope it makes sense. What we have to do is that I will have this such kind of thing as a user input, and I will have to get this thing or this thing as an output. Basically, you have to restore the original string, right? And the original string is like that. This is the code. So basically, change. I'll just do it like this. Change the codified change, change the codified version into uh, original string, right? Original string as per the given rule. Given rule we have already seen, right? And uh, let's try it. Let's give it a number 9, right? 9th problem of this session. And let's. So, what should be our strategy? Uh, let us define a function so that we can try with different stuff. So, define a function. Let's say define a function to change the codified version into original string as per the given rule, which is this one, right? Let me put this here. So this will be kind of a user input and this will be output. Let me just write one more user input. So let's say you wanted to print 999 plus 1 equal to 1000. Right? How you would print it is that you would say hash 3 times 9 plus 1 equal to 1 hash 3 times 0. Okay. So this particular thing will be actually be written like this. So if my input was, the left hand side, right hand side should be my output. Okay, but now let's see how to define, how to define strategy to take this problem. So how I can do this? Somehow, if I find where this particular hash appears, right, I would be able to know that what number appears after that, right? And that particular number will be the number of times the numbers, the text which appears after that has to be repeated, right? So anyway, that repeating is simple, right? So if I want to repeat something a few times, let's say A, I want to repeat 10 times, I can simply multiply it by 10, and then I would be repeating A 10 times. So repeating should be easy for me if I know the exact basis, exact cases where this happens, and the number followed by that, and then one more number followed by that, right? Because that is the number to be repeated, number or text or character, whatever is there, that is to be repeated. So let us try tackling it. So we have to define a function which let's say restore original and takes a string, input string, right? And now let's think how to do this. Yeah, so basically what you can do is that you will have to uh, right, as we have already got like this. Okay. So what we can do is that let's define a simple variable to hold the result. Right. We are calling this thing as the result. Okay. So at the start, that results hold nothing but a simple, it's blank, right? If I say result equal to, I don't initialize it, so it would be an, I'm sorry, it would be an empty string, right? Result would hold nothing but an empty string. Okay. So currently it is an empty string, right? And so I will also have to know that if so basically as I had defined that if I just get to find that where this hashes are appearing, and then the next two characters I will be able to repeat it, right? But I will have to obviously iterate over each of them, right? Since this is a string, I can iterate over it, right? It is an iterable. So I will have to go over 1, 2, 3 each of them, and then check that if they are what I want to find. If they are not, then I will have to do something else. And if they are that thing, then I will just repeat it. Okay. So I hope that makes sense, and let's try to implement it now. So I will say, so I want to go from start to beginning, right? 0 to the end. So I will just say that where I am currently. So I will say that my current uh, position is equal to let's say 0, because I will start from 0. This is the 0th index. And since this is a string, right? Right. That is why we are doing like this. Okay. So anyway, I will define my end position, right? And end position can only be until the length of this thing, only the length of this thing, right? I cannot go any further, right? Because this is all the length I have. So I can say length of input string, right? In string, right? So this particular position, so I'm keeping one tracker for my current position and one tracker to hold the length of value so that I can know until where I have to go. Now I can simply use a while loop and say that while my current index, okay, while where my current position is, right? If my current position has not yet reached the end position, right? So this is exactly how what this signifies, right? If my current position, if I am here, right, I have to still do something, right? So I will keep going and say, now I will start checking, right? So my current position is 0. So my current position is 0 here, right? So I want to check if this is a hash, but this is not a hash. Anyway, I will check. I will say that if my string, input string at current index, current position, right? What this will do, obviously, input string of 0 will be the first element, right? Okay, I is 0 right now. Okay, current position is 0, so 0. If my current position, that is the first one, is not hash, is equal to hash. So let's say if this was hash, right? I would have done something. So let's not worry about it right now. And write else. right? What I would have done if it was not a hash. So it is not a hash right now. So what is to be done if it is a hash, not hash? I will have to simply take it like that. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to make any change. So what I will do is that I will just simply do result equal to, so result I already have here, right? I want to, you know, basically change this string to this form, right? So I will just do result equal to result plus, whatever input string I have and my current position is, right? So current position, okay. And then I will just increase my current position. Current position is equal to current position plus 1. So I have not yet handled the hash case because it's not starting from hash. So let's check what happening. My current position is 0. Okay. So my current position is obviously less than the end position. So and then I'm checking if the current position, whatever string is at the current position. If it is hash, then do something. But it is not hash. So I will call here, right? I will say that whatever is the result, just add concatenate plus. When you use plus with strings, they basically concatenate it, right? So concatenate the previous result, whatever you have, with the string that is at the current position, which is x. So basically the new result at that particular position will be x, right? So let me just print result here so that you will know, you will understand how it works. Okay, so let me just run it and say this one, restore original. Let restore original and pass it this thing as a string and post. I'm sorry, it should be end post session. So let me run it again and let me run this again. So now you can see that first time it went at x, next time it went at xy, right? And obviously there was something which was going on, so I'll just stop it here because this particular string was true but nothing was happening. So it ultimately reached a position where there was hash and it did not know what to do. But until before that, first it reached x and then it reached y, and you have the result. So first it was only x, then it was xy. Now I have to handle the case where we can find hash. So when we find hash, what we can do is that we can simply say that the result, you know, result was the previous result, result already now as xy, right? And now at the third position it has found this. So already we have xy plus input string, whatever input string I have, usme se the current position, okay, the current position plus 2, okay, y plus 2. Anyone? So because obviously because see, the if my current position is 3, this one, right? After this 1 and 2, this is the one that I have to repeat, right? So I take my this particular string and just multiply it, right? To repeat it as many times by the input string at which position? A position lesser than this, right? Position plus 1. So what basically, I hope this makes sense, right? Just look at it once and let me know if this is fine. So what happens here is that you know this particular thing, you are just multiplying. This is the number, right? And this is the string that you want, right? So after this is found, after this is found at that position, after that you have the number and then the string that you want. Okay, so I'll just convert it into a number because this is actually a string right now. What this will do is that whatever xy was there, it will just concatenate whatever the value of this was. What this will do is that now my current position is 2, right? 0 is done, 1 is done. At 2, what happened was it will take input string of 4. At 4, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. At 4, we have z, and repeat it number of times, kitna times? At 3 times. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 6 times, right? So 6 times z will be repeated and added to xy. Okay. So xy, z, 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 z. So right. So now I've done it, right? All I have to do is that I will have to just change my current position, right? From now to next 3, right? Why? Because I've already taken into account the next two numbers, right? 1 and 2. So my next position should be after 3, right? If my current position was 2, my next position should be 5. Because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Obviously, this should be my next position. Now, all of this is done, right? 3 values have already been taken care of. Now, next 3 values will have to be taken care of. So this is my final result. This is how I could do it. And then at the end, what I could say was simply return the result, right, so that I could use it at different cases. Now if I run it, uh, return result, this ran, okay. And if I now try to do this, now it is more evident, right? Now you could see that first it was x, xy, then x, z, 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 then 0002, and then 3, right? So it did that thing. Let me just copy it, this particular one, and try to run it. Let me just remove this print here. Now if I print it, uh, do we have some other thing also? Okay, so it gave me what is here. Right? If I try this particular thing, it will give me 999 plus 1 is 4. So I hope this was understood by everyone, and this is fine. So this is like kind of problems that we do to you know sharpen our mind and understand the kind of things we can do in Python. Obviously, this could have been done in other languages well easily, but here you can see that referencing and then repeating it is so easy in Python, and then obviously concatenating it back to the result that you want to store in, right, the initial variable. So all of these things are easier. So that is what. Okay. So I think this is all the practice examples that we will see today. Apart from this, let's see a few things that we were trying here. Right? We were trying that if it is unique, difference of elements. So we did something like set to find the unique elements in the list. But let's say I did not want to use a list, right? And say that function to I the function to get a unique list from a given list without using a set. Okay. So let's say do not want to use the set and you wanted to code yourself. Uh, I will just define a function called unique list, right? And it would obviously take a list, right, as a parameter. So it would take a list. Let me call it just 10. And let's say x is equal to, uh, I'll just explain this. What I'm basically done is that I have initialized a list, empty list called X, so that I can fill values in here. And this is a strategy, right? Generally, when you want to extract elements from a different list, and do not want to change that list but hold its elements in some other list, you simply define an empty list and then append all of those elements in this new list, right? So this is how you do it. And then what you can do is that you can just iterate over it for I in L, right? For I in L, basically each of the elements. If I is not available in X, I is not in X, right? So I will default not be in X, right? But let me just do this. And then uh, the So what I am doing here is that first I am iterating over each of the values in N. So it is a list, right? So for each of those values, I am checking if it is not already in X. So right, because if it is not already in X, if it is not there, what I am doing is that simply putting it there. Right? Next time also it will check if it is already there, and if it is already there, it will not do anything, right? But if it is not there, it will add, and at the last, I will just return. Right, so this thing will simply, if I check it and put unique list and pass it a list, right, called 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, right, and just print it, it would uh, print it, right? But if I print the same list, because there are no duplicate elements, but if I said 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 again, right? So it would not print it. It would only print again the unique list, because it would have removed all of them. Right? So this is how you can set that unique, uh, let's say unique. So unique you can say, and then unique will have that value. Right? So same way, right? Here you are using this set function. Ultimately, set function at the hood does this thing only. Right? So this is how we can find this. One more thing that we know, that if we doing something like this, length of any string, I'm sorry, this, I can get the length, total length of this one. Right? Yeah. So, but what if I didn't want to use this length function and wanted to count the length of a string using type? So what I can do, I just define length of a string using type. Okay. So function, let me define the function so that I can use it multiple times. So I'll just say define length of str, okay, and just pass a string, string, and now I want to do something with this string, right? So if I could, now it is an iterable, so I could iterate over it, right? So I can say uh, strng, right? For string in string, I could say that I could define a variable to keep track. So I could say that n equal to 0. So my n would hold the count of what the length of string was. So what I would say is that I just need to increase that count, right? For each of them, I just need to increase that count. Okay, and then ultimately I need to just return that one. Okay, so I hope this was understood by everyone. What happened was that I want to start from zero, right? I basically there is some counter which will count the length, right? I will start from zero, and for each of the elements in that string, right? Because that is iterable, I will just add the counter. I will just increase the counter by one. So for each of the elements, it will keep increasing the counter, and ultimately at the last element, it will have the length. So if I just want to do this and say length of string called something, I don't know. So it would give me the length of it. So it says 30. So this is how you can define your own function to calculate length of a string, right? Uh, Also, more things you could do. So let's say there were uh, uh, there was you were given two three-digit numbers. Hello, can everyone hear me? Hello, am I still connected? This one, huh? Okay, great. So I'm just saying that let's say I have two numbers, right? Two three-digit numbers, and I I want to check that if each of the digits of those numbers are even. So let me define this as a problem itself. Okay. So what basically I will do is that I will define a problem like this, that I am given two three-digit numbers, okay, and I have to check if all of the digits. So three number have three digits, right? All of the digits are even. All right. Uh, and then print it. Okay. Print that particular. Right. So let's say, as an example, I have 100 and the second number is 400. My uh, output should, contain numbers like 100, 102, 240, 244, you know, but not 344, right? 344 is even, but not all dates are even. Okay, so it will not contain 344 or 136, right? These numbers will not be there because it has two odd numbers, 1 and 3 are odd. So I want to give two numbers and find only the numbers in which all of the digits are even, right? So how I could do it, right? And so for this, let us simply define two functions. One to hold number one, and let's call it 100, and one to hold number two, right? Let's call it 400. Okay. So uh, now how to do it? Let's devise a strategy. And so ultimately what I have to do, basically this is my start and this is my end. So ultimately I will have to obviously iterate over each of the elements, 100, 101, right, to check if there's though all of those digits are even, right? That should be my strategy. So simply what I will do is that for uh, I will say that for num, let's say for num in range, mm, for num in range num1, okay, and num2, right? I will do what? Okay. Uh, so basically I want to iterate each of these elements, right? So, and these are numbers. So first of all, I would, and how would I would check that if those numbers are, I will have to take each of them separately, right? So until they are a string, I cannot, take each of them separately because one number is just one unit, right? But a three-digit number expressed as a string are comprised of three different units, three characters. So that's exactly what I will have to do. I will say that str num string number. I will say it simply str of num. Right? The number will be converted into string. Now I can take each of those values, and since I know that it is only a 3-digit number, so I will have only 3 indexes for the string. So I will have str underscore num 0 as well as 1 2 3. You get the point. So I can check that. What I will simply do is that I will put an if statement and say if integer, right? Integer ultimately. So now currently this is a string, right? Ultimately I will have to convert it back into an integer to check if it is an even number. So I will tackle each of these separately and say if modulo 2 equal to 0. So we have already checked that we've already seen how to check if a number is odd, right? We just do a modulo of that, and that modulo should be 0. Then it is divided by 2. Okay. So so I think this is fine, and and then you you need to check others also, right? It's just one number that you check for now. So you will just do the same thing. Let me just copy it here and paste it here. So you will have to just check the first one as well as the second one. And all of these three conditions are required to be true for us to believe that all of those numbers are even, right? All of these things should be true at the same time. So now I am checking if all of those three are even. If those are even, now I am not. So let me define one list here called to store basically whatever those numbers will be to store it. So I will say that numbers again numbers. I can just say numbers. Okay. So this numbers, whatever those numbers. So ultimately, what I want is some specific set of numbers, right? And I just discussed before that whenever you want to, not store number in the same list, but in some other list, you define a different, empty list and then start appending it in that. So whatever number we are finding here, if those numbers, all of them are even, I want to just append it into a different list, right? And call append and say that this string should be there. In fact, numbers numbers string ही बोलते हैं इसको because ultimately those are numbers but those are in string form. And since we have to only print it, right, we don't need to convert it or do anything else. So what this gave me was ultimately if I print the number string, let me try and print the number string. Number string, right? What I can see is that it printed all the numbers which have actually it has some issues. You can see that it is not printing all the values which have only even number. So let's check what the issue is. That 0 1 2, this one was left because this third value also we will have to check, and that is why it is throwing away. So number string dot append, and then let's print it again. Now we can see that why between only right. So it is trying from 200 to 300 only. Okay, and why is that? Let's come to that, but ultimately you can see that the output that it has produced has only the numbers in which all of those individual strings are even, right? And now let's check that why these have some issue.
I think Atul, there is no issue because 100 is number start with 100 to 200 is always start with one. So it is
Yeah.
giving.
Sorry, actually it is just presence of mind. I'm not present here. Obviously, anything that starts from one is odd, right? So there is no issue. Thanks for clarifying. So anyway, let's proceed. Okay, I think this is it. I think this is all we want to do today, right? Uh, I think we have practiced enough, and after this, I will provide you. Basically, I think tomorrow also we will learn a few more things about Python, right? Object-oriented programming concepts, and we will have more exercises which might be more advanced than this, right? So after we do that, mm, right? After we do that, I will be providing one assignment on all of the things that we learned in Python. So with that, I think we can, we will be at a level where we can go further into the world of web scraping and explore more. Because I think we will have to understand more concepts which are particularly related to web scraping. Obviously, all of it we will be doing in Python. So ultimately, when we are doing some web scraping, it is actually an advanced use of Python. So we will also be doing advanced use of Python, right? And we will get comfortable more with Python. But we will also have to spend some time on the other things, like which are the core of web scraping. So we will spend some time on that in the upcoming lectures, and then ultimately we will tackle all those web scraping problems, practice problems. Okay. So I hope whatever was these 10 problems, whatever we discussed today, I hope these gave you some more idea into how the language works, right? And all of the kind of things that you can do in Python. If you're stuck somewhere, you how to Google it and find where you can find the right answer. Obviously, Googling, if you're not doing correctly, then you might not be able to find the answer, right? But obviously, if you're trying to find something simple like how to split a string, you will definitely find it. Okay. So what I will do is I will just download the .py file, and if I open it in my text editor, just copy it here and paste it here, paste, replace the file, refresh, and open it Sublime Text. I can see that all of that, whatever I had, written there, has come in this file, and this is like, I mean, really nice to, have a reference. I will send this file as well as this file, that function file that we had discussed earlier. Right? So I think that is it for today's session. If we have any doubts or issues, we can discuss. Right? Just clear that. Okay, so that is it, guys, for this session. If there is any issues, please feel free to ask. That is it from my side for today. So I'll just wait for if there are any more issues or questions. Where is it? No, thank you. Yeah, chalo, great. So I think I'll just stop the recording the session now, and then we can conclude.